Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. So excited you're here because I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of all time. Not just horror, but all my favorites, any genre. However, most of them are horror except for two of them. This is one of those videos that I'm probably going to be redoing every couple years just because my taste changes so often and my favorites change every now and then. I'm always finding new ones. I'm always discovering new favorites. Just one of those things. And actually, I have found 2 new favorites just this year. That's how often things change for me. And you know, if you're a book lover, if you're someone that reads a lot, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's just one of those things that happens. You're always discovering new authors and finding new, finding new favorites, finding new genres even. I've even discovered genres this year that I didn't even know existed. So yeah, just one of those things. I'm gonna start with non-horror, and like I said, there are only 2 of them. I'm gonna start with those. And you know, these are in no particular order. There's no way I could choose really a favorite. Well, actually that's a lie. I do have a favorite actually, believe it or not. I do have a favorite book of all time, and it's been my favorite for years. And I don't believe you guys have heard me talk about it. It's possible that you have, but I don't think so. But yeah, let's get into it. The first one I just discovered this month, actually. That's how new this one is. So you haven't heard me bring it up. And that is All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. Probably butchering that name. It is translated by, they should really put it on the front cover, but they didn't in this case. Translated by Sam Bett and David Boyd. Yeah, I'm gonna read you the back of this one. Fuyuko Eri is a freelance copy editor in her 30s, working and living alone in a city where it is not easy to form new relationships. She has little contact with anyone other than her editor, Hijiri. When Fuyuko stops one day in the middle of a Tokyo street and notices her reflection in a storefront window, what she sees is a woman lacking the strength to change her life and decides to do something about it. As the long overdue change begins, however, painful episodes from Fuyuko's past surface, and her behavior slips further and further beyond the pale. So, even though like the storyline itself isn't all that unique, the way it's told though is gorgeous. It's written in a way that is just magical. That's the best way to say it. It's magical. I will tell you that the very first page of this was the thing that made me fall in love with this book. It took 1 page for me to completely fall in love. Yeah, 1 page is all it took. And I immediately knew that I was gonna love this book. Yeah, it was just completely magic and magnetic. And I'm gonna read, I normally don't read a lot from books because I think a lot of people don't like that. But in this case, I don't care because I just want to read it to you. It's so pretty. And it's not long. It's fairly short. Yeah. Why does the night have to be so beautiful? As I walk through the night, I remember what Mitsusuka said to me. Because at night, only half the world remains. I count the light, all the lights of the night. The red light at the intersection, trembling as if wet, even though it isn't raining. Street light after street light. Tail lights trailing off into the distance. The soft glow from the windows. Phones in the hands of people just arriving home. And people just about to go somewhere. Why is the night so beautiful? Why does it shine the way it does? Why is the night made up entirely of light? The music flows from the earphones, filling my ears, filling me. It becomes everything. A lullaby. A gorgeous piano lullaby. What a wonderful piece of music. It really is. It's my favorite piece by Chopin. Did you like it too, Fuyuko? Yeah, it's like the night is breathing. Like the sound of melted light. The light at night is special because the overwhelming light of day has left us, and the remaining half draws on everything it has to keep the world around us bright. You're right, Mitsusuka. It isn't anything, but it's so beautiful that I could cry. Like, is that not magic? Is that not just, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so, so beautiful. But yeah, it's the way night is described in this is just gorgeous. It reminded me, so I've always been somebody that has been drawn to night and especially city lights. And I used to drive at night a lot. Not anymore because I can't see to drive at night. I do good to walk at night, much less drive. But I used to drive at night a lot as like a de-stress thing. And yeah, I had a friend, I won't say their name, and unfortunately we're not friends anymore. It's what happens. But I used to, like, whenever life was just too hectic or I just needed, to get away or whatever, I would just go knock on his door and he just would know. He would just know, and I would just knock on his door like, hey, you want to drive? You want to go for a drive? And he always would. And we would go and to the city and we would just drive around because I just wanted to see city lights. It was just something I've always been drawn to, especially like in the rain, because there's just something about it. But that's what this book reminded me of, is just that time in my life. But I loved it. It was so magical to me. But the way the night was described was beautiful. And also, Fuyuko and her editor, who is also her friend Hijiri, they have just the typical conversations you would have with a friend. In particular, just two girlfriends talking, but they talk about relationships and guys and work and all that. But it's typical relationships you would have. But they were just so relatable. And even though they're just typical relationships, they're said in such a way that it's like, you'll just be thinking like, yes, you just took the words right out of my brain. I wouldn't have thought to put it that way. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything that was too unique. It's just the way it was said and the way it was written. It was just really pretty. And then Fuyuko meets this guy, and their conversations were actually really thought-provoking. And Fuyuko is very observant, and she observes people, and just there's a lot of talk of human behaviors in this as she's observing other people and how they're going about their lives and their relationships and just their day-to-day, and just it's like all these things are happening around her, and just her observations. It's almost like she considers herself an outsider to it, like life isn't happening to her, it's just happening around her in a way. But just all this talk of human observation. So there was a lot of that in there too. It's very relatable, but it's also told very beautifully. There's talk of, there's commentary on like alcoholism in this and loneliness and being alone and, especially being alone in a big city. But yeah, just really, really pretty. And also I will say that this was set in the summer. Like the whole book was set in the summertime. But there's talk of Fuyuko's birthday is like Christmas Eve, and she talks of every year going on a walk on her birthday. But with this book set in the summer, and how it made me feel, and how atmospheric it was, and how like everything was described, I cannot imagine a book by this author set in like fall and winter. I cannot imagine what she could do with that setting. And now I have to see if she has one written in that setting, and if not, I need one, because it would be pure magic. Like even more so, I cannot even imagine. It would be just beautiful. So next up is my second. It's considered horror, but it's more cozy horror, so I don't think I would classify it as horror. But this is my comfort read, and that is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. Yeah, this follows Annie. Annie has gone through a breakup. Her boyfriend has broken up with her. He's keeping the apartment. So she has relocated. She's moved upstate New York in this small town. And she's met Sophie. Sophie is this beautiful, charming, magnetic woman. And there's just something about her. But everyone in the town is terrified of Sophie. However, Annie is for some reason drawn to her, and she spends more and more time with her, and they strike up a friendship. Has all the dark, witchy, cozy vibes, and centers around female friendship, which I love, and also that fresh start trope, which I love. I love a good fresh start, something I crave every now and then, and something I'm craving now actually. So I'll probably reread this soon. A good fall book. And also there is a pet spider named Ralph, and I freaking love him. He is a whole mood and one of my favorite parts about this book. But yeah, this is my comfort read, which I think everybody needs. It's so perfect. Next up, we have The Harpy by Megan Hunter. This is kind of more literary, well, it is more literary fiction with like a touch of horror. And if you liked the movie Black Swan, this definitely has that vibe to it, because like this has multiple layers. This follows a couple, Lucy and Jake, and Lucy has discovered that Jake has been unfaithful, and Jake basically begs her like, no, please, I'm really sorry, it'll never happen again, please don't leave me. I tell you what, let's make a deal. Don't leave. You can hurt me 3 times. Okay, 3 times. However you want, anytime. I won't know when it's coming. I won't know how. You can hurt me 3 times. Just please don't leave. So, yeah, she stays. But she's going through some things. Okay, she's struggling. And you as a reader have no idea when she's going to get him or how she's going to get him, but you know it's coming. And you're also like in her head the whole time, because she's dealing with, you know, all this stuff. Metaphorically, she's turning into the Harpy. So there are all these references to the Harpy and all these metaphors within the book. And there are also all these metaphors about the house, because this house has always been her safe space. She gave up her career to be a wife and mother. That was a decision they made together. Even though she had a career that she loved and everything, she gave it up to be a wife and mother. You know, because he decided to be the man of the house and the provider and everything. So there are all these, like, this commentary on like the social norms and all that crap. And also the double standards about, you know, between men and women. And even though he's the one who cheated and he's the one who did this wrong, she keeps second guessing herself and what could I have done different, and comparing herself to the other woman and all this. And it's like, oh, you just want to like reach through the book and hug her. And also you want to reach through the book and like, you also want to have a conversation with her and say, no, he's the one that messed up. Like, you did not mess up. Like, quit doing that. And you also, like, it's very relatable. And it was at a time in my life where I could very much relate to this book. And I think that's why I loved it so much. But there are all these really good quotes in this. And like I said, it was very relatable too, because home has always been my safe space. And she almost felt betrayed by the home. Oh, it's just so gorgeous. And it was very lyrical and poetic. But she's going through this thing because, like I said, she's turning into the Harpy, metaphorically. They will go to a part, they're going to, about their lives, and he's like going about like nothing happened. It's like he apologized, so he just moves past it. Like, oh, I apologize, we're good. But in her head, they're not good. Nothing is good. Nothing is right. Nothing's ever going to be right again. So yeah, they're going to parties, and they'll go to this party, and everybody's looking at her weird. Everybody's looking at her differently, but nobody's looking at him differently, even though he's the one that messed up. So anyways, there are all these layers. But yeah, so there are all these metaphors too about the Harpy and also about the house. A quote for you. I asked my mother what a Harpy was. She told me that they punish men for the things they do. So it's a good revenge novella, and I am obsessed with it. It is so good and so relatable. Oddly relatable, but really good. Next up, switching gears to a little comedy horror, and that is Clowns vs. Spiders by Jeff Strand. In this one, the clowns are the good guys. And The clowns were part of this circus where they were the fun, happy clowns. They made kids laugh and they made everybody laugh. They were so fun. But then clowns started to be scary. So they got laid off from the circus because nobody wants to be scared. You know, they want to laugh. So they get laid off, but they all want to stay together because they're friends. And the only way to do that is they get hired on at this haunted attraction. So they're at this haunted attraction now. They're not having a good time because they do not want to make kids cry. They don't want to make people scream. They don't want to scare people. They're not having fun at all. Well, to make matters worse, there is this spider infestation and the spiders are taking over the whole town. And these spiders are terrifying. And the clowns are going to try to save the town. So, yeah. Let me tell you, the spiders, Jeff Strand did not hold any punches when it came to these spiders. Nobody is safe. I'm going to warn you, nobody is safe when it comes to these spiders. They are so scary, and yeah, they're ruthless. So you have the scary spiders, so you definitely have horror in this, and then you have comedy because the banter between these clowns is hysterical. It is so funny. I laughed. This is one of those books that anybody that was around, I wanted to read it out loud and just tell whoever was there. And nobody in my house reads. They really don't care what I'm reading about. But I just had to tell somebody because it was so damn funny. But yeah, the banter is so good. Jeff Strand is a master when it comes to banter. Hysterical. It is so good. The clown names in this, one of them is Jaunty. Best clown name ever. So good. But yeah, comedy horror. You want to laugh and be terrified at the same time. This is it. So good. Next up, I have just talked about this recently, so I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm not going to redo the back or tell you what it's about again, because like I just talked about it, I'm not going to beat it to death. But Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. Really enjoyed this. Like I told y'all before, it's 600 pages. No page was wasted. It was not rambly. Worth every minute that I spent on it. And yeah, I actually flew through it and enjoyed it so much. It was full of nostalgia. It was definitely took me back to like my 12-year-old self. This group of boys, 12-year-old boys, it felt like an adventure. And this author did really good at setting the scene and describing the town and the school so well that it felt like I was there. Like I could see, hear, smell everything, and it felt like I was having an adventure right alongside them. The villains were really scary, and yeah, it was so good. I feel like Dan Simmons created something truly special with this one. We are switching gears again and going to extreme horror. The next two are extreme horror. And I know you've heard me mention these, but it's been a little while. So, first one is Full Brutal by Christopher Triana. Okay. Yeah, we have a couple bad girls with the next ones. This one follows Kim White. Kim is a 16-year-old girl. She has everything. She's very popular. She's a cheerleader. She has a dad who loves her. She basically has a whole apartment in her house. I mean, she has everything. But I guess she's bored. Because, you know, everybody, all her friends are losing their virginities. And she's kind of like, yeah, I should probably do that. You know, everybody else is doing it. But I'm too good for these high school boys. Like, I'm way too good for the high school boys. I can't be doing that. So she decides to seduce a teacher. And then she proceeds to completely ruin his whole life in a big way. Like, it's bad. If you think you can imagine, no, you can't. It is so bad. It says, this starts Kim on a runaway train of sadism, and she makes every effort to destroy the lives of those around her. But soon, simple backstabbing is not enough to keep her excited, and she nosedives into sabotage, violence, and even murder. When Kim finds out she's pregnant with her teacher's child, a new madness overtakes her, and she realizes there's only one thing that will satisfy her baby's hunger. Yeah. This goes... It goes there. It gets dark, and you think it can't take it any farther, but then it does. and you're in her mind the whole time, like you are in her mind, and it is a very dark place to be. Also, I've said this before, but the way Christopher Triana can write a 16-year-old female from the mind of a 16-year-old female as a grown man is astonishing. I cannot believe how well he can do that. It's amazing to me. And he's written other female characters too, and he does an amazing job. This is definitely my favorite of all his characters that I've read so far, though. It's amazing. Definitely, I think she might be my favorite female villain of all of them, though. So good. Next, another extreme horror, and that is Maeve Fly by C.J. Lead. This one follows, of course, Maeve Fly. She works at Disneyland during the day. It doesn't say that, but that's where she works. And yeah, she is a freaking mess. But she works at Disneyland during the day, and she ends up meeting, at some point, her best friend's brother, Gideon, who is a hockey player, and he awakens this dark side in her. And boy, is it dark. Things go off the rails from there. She also has a love of Halloween, so you have this Halloween playlist sprinkled throughout. You have Halloween decorations thrown in there. Yeah. You can see from the cover that there's some things involving teeth. And yeah. So yeah, this is one of those. I think I've mentioned this like months ago, but if you're ever watching a horror movie and it gets to a part that you're like kind of gritting your teeth and you're kind of half covering your eyes to where you're like kind of peeking because you want to watch it but you don't want to watch it because you're like, how far are we taking this? That's how this book felt at times, because I'm like, where are we going with this? It was so good. It was so good, and it's one of those I want to reread over and over, like especially around Halloween time, just because of it definitely had some Halloween vibes in there with all the Halloween references. I'm absolutely obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed with Maeve Fly, and I love that she is unhinged just for the hell of it. There's no tragic backstory. There's no like, there's no trauma there. There's no nothing. She's just unhinged for the hell of it, and I freaking love that. I love it, and I was obsessed with this as soon as I read it, and it's a whole vibe. She is a whole vibe, and I love her. I love her. Is it weird to say that I love her? Probably, but I do. Next up, going into a classic now, switching vibes again, and that is Phantom of the Opera. This is one, I know a lot of people don't like Phantom of the Opera because they say that the characters are unlikable, and I totally get that. I really do. And I will say that, yes, the characters are unlikable. Most of them. The one that I like is the villain, and that's Eric. I love Eric. I'm obsessed with Eric. I love all of his antics and how he commands their presence. I love his demands. I love how he just, I love how he, all of the things he does and all how he gets their reactions and all the drama of this book. I love it. I'm sure you know the story, so I won't even get into what this is about. I've never seen like any of the movies or the musicals or plays or anything, but I would love to. I think it would be really fun. I don't really care to see a movie. I think there are movies. I don't really care to see a movie, but I think it would be really fun to see a musical or a play or something. I would love to do that. But yes, I don't like any of the other characters, especially Raoul. Raoul, I think, is whiny. He gets on my nerves every time I read this book, but Eric, I love. And all of the antics, I love all of his antics, but I also love the vibes and the ambiance of this, and the theater, and how, like, it's set in an opera house, and how, like, just how opulent it is, and yeah, the whole mood of it, and the whole vibes, and also just the drama of it. I love that. it's a whole mood, and I do really enjoy that. And yeah, just the vibes. I enjoy it, and this is one of those that I reread a lot, and I've tabbed the crap out of. I don't know if you see that, but like, I can't get enough of it. Every time I read it, I find a new thing to appreciate about it. So, love it. Hopefully that doesn't fall. And then that's going to bring me to my number one favorite. I do have a number one favorite. I know a lot of people can't pick a number one favorite book, but I actually have a number one. It's been my number one for years. And that is Phantom by Susan Kay. This is a prequel to Phantom of the Opera. I've read a lot of prequels, sequels, retellings. This is my favorite. And I've tabbed the crap out of this one too. I've reread it a few times, and it's actually one that I gifted to my dad for Father's Day this year because he's gotten into reading over the last couple of years, and I love that I could share my favorite with him, and I really thought that he could relate to Eric. I really did, because Eric got a rough start, and I feel like this book is about how he got a rough start, and as the book went on, he came into his power. I really think that's what it's about. That's, I feel like, the theme of this. But I'm obsessed with this book, and I think it's very poetic, and it's beautifully told, and yes, it's horror, but I feel like anybody could read this and enjoy it. It's not overly gory, and yes, there is some violence in it, but it's not really for no reason, I don't feel like. And it's just really beautifully told. It's beautifully written, and it goes from Eric's, it's a prequel to Phantom of the Opera, and it is about Eric's life from birth all the way to death. So it tells about his mother, it tells about his, he was born deformed, right, with a deformed face. So it tells why he wears the mask, and it even tells like how the opera house was built, and the building of it, him building his lair, and why he is the way he is, the people he meets along the way, and all of it. There's a little bit of everything in here. There's love, there's hate, there's violence, there's everything. There's everything in here. It's so pretty. There's plenty of pretty quotes. There's the themes in this, I'll tell you I could do a whole video on this book, and I won't get too much into it, even though I love it. But the themes in this, of course, he's compared to death a lot. There's a lot of metaphors, and he's compared to death a lot, and ghosts and darkness. There's a lot of comparisons between him and those things. Of course, there's magic and illusion, music, love, lust, power. Of course, there's a lot of murder and and all that, because it is horror. But he's brilliant. Like, he's born from very young. He's absolutely brilliant. He's a natural with music and magic and illusion, and just he learns everything really quickly, and he's really into like architecture and stuff. But there's a lot about like architecture in here, and just obviously music is a theme, but there's all the way through is music and magic and illusion, and religion is also a theme a little bit, but it's just really pretty. And I loved seeing him come into his own throughout the book, and from a little kid, and even though he came into this world and had a rough start and didn't get the love and attention and nurturing that he needed in the beginning, and he did have a rough go at it even through life, and didn't always come into didn't always have the best people around. I loved seeing him come into his own, and I freaking loved his personality. And oh man, I just love him as a character. I love him. I loved him in Phantom of the Opera even before I read Phantom, but I love him. Absolutely love him. I'm obsessed with him. He's my favorite villain ever. Like, I love him so much. But I will say, if you're gonna read, if you have not read Phantom of the Opera, and you plan on reading Phantom of the Opera, don't read this one first, even though it's prequel, because it'll change your view of Phantom of the Opera if you haven't read it yet. It would change your view of it. So definitely read Phantom of the Opera first. That way you get your first reaction of Phantom of the Opera before you read this one, if that makes sense. But the way this tied into the original, it was like a puzzle piece. It was so perfect. The way she so perfectly tied this story into the original, and the original events are mentioned in this one too. Like, you know, it's so perfectly tied together. They go hand in hand so well. But yeah, it just gorgeous. It's so gorgeous. I think my favorite quote, there are so many to choose from, but I think my favorite, it says, "Eric, I hope you'll never become so good at building walls that you can't see when they need to be pulled down." It's so pretty. But the whole book is written so well, and just, it's so perfect, and it goes so well with the original. I can't get enough of it, and I can't stop reading it, and I can't stop talking about it. Like I said, I could probably do a whole video on my annotations and going through it. And yeah, so good. Those are my favorite books of all time. Obviously, you know, my favorites are just the ones that I've enjoyed the most, the ones that I can't stop talking about, I can't stop recommending, the ones that I want to reread over and over. You know, I could do another video on the books that I think are the most well-written of all time. That's one that I would say is the most well-written of all time. But, you know, these are just the ones that I've enjoyed the most. The ones that I had the best time reading. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, maybe you'll pick some of these up and let me know what you think about them. I would love to know down in the comments, what is your favorite book of all time? Or if you can't pick one, what are your favorites of all time? Whatever the genre is, what are your favorite books of all time? I'm always looking to add to my TBR. I will see you next Friday. Bye for now.